stretching thousands of kilometers across deserts, winding rivers, and towering mountains. One of the most ambitious and controversial barriers in modern history stands between two nations, the United States and Mexico. This structure has become a battleground of politics, security, and human struggle. Originally built to curb illegal crossings and strengthen national security, it has since evolved into a deeply polarizing symbol, one that sparks intense debates on sovereignty, immigration, and the future of borders themselves. But now, with a second Trump presidency, new developments have emerged, changing the scope of this massive project. In this video, we'll uncover its origins, construction, and the shocking revelations about what comes next. Stay with us until the end. President Donald Trump has launched his second term with a flurry of policy actions to reshape the United States government. From trade policies to civil rights, immigration to foreign aid, his executive orders are already reshaping national priorities. But perhaps the most immediate and controversial move? The renewed focus on securing the U.S.-Mexico border. Just 3 days after returning to the Oval Office, Trump delivered his first televised interview, setting the stage for what's to come. Meanwhile, his immigration agenda is already in motion. 1,500 personnel were deployed to the southern border.
And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country,
reinforcing his long-standing stance on border security. And now a new law is on its way to his desk, a bill that requires undocumented immigrants arrested for theft or violent crimes to be detained while awaiting trial. The bill, named in honor of Laken Riley, a Georgia nursing student tragically murdered last year, has reignited debates on immigration enforcement. So what has Trump himself said about this? All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came, he declared in his inauguration speech, signaling a hardline approach that's already being put into action. But what does this mean on the ground? Construction of the border wall is once again in full swing. New sections are being built in California and Texas, with work resuming at key points along the border. On January 22nd, construction restarted near the San Ysidro land port of entry in California, followed by additional reinforcements near El Paso, Texas, on January 31st. Though Trump has vowed to finish the border wall he began in his first term, this latest wave of construction is actually funded by appropriations and contracts secured during that period. In California, crews are replacing outdated fencing with new anti-climb barriers in areas that previously had little to no protection. The work is being carried out by Fisher Sand and Gravel under 2018 border wall appropriations. Meanwhile, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has been deployed to oversee progress in locations like Friendship Park, where new sections have already been under construction for weeks. U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, has confirmed that these projects will be completed using only funds from the 2018 budget, as funding from 2021 and 2022 was not allocated for California's portion of the wall. However, Trump's renewed push for border security doesn't stop there. His national emergency declaration has authorized the Department of Homeland Security to take all appropriate action to close gaps in the existing barrier and ensure complete operational control over the southern border. Military involvement has also intensified. 500 U.S. Marines and sailors from Camp Pendleton have been deployed to support enforcement operations.
500 Marines from Camp Pendleton will be stationed near our southern border to help secure it.
In Texas, around 1,500 troops have already arrived at Fort Bliss, preparing to assist Border Patrol efforts along the border from El Paso to Sunland Park, New Mexico. On February 3rd, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Immigration Czar Tom Homan personally visited Sunland Park to inspect operations. In El Paso, new sections of the border wall began construction in late January, using funds originally earmarked in 2020, but delayed under the Biden administration. While Fisher Sand and Gravel is known to hold federal contracts from Trump's first term, it remains unclear which contractors are handling the latest developments in El Paso. Additional crews from the Army Corps of Engineers have also been deployed alongside military reinforcements. For any further expansion beyond what's already funded, new legislation from Congress would be required. Meanwhile, Texas is pushing to be reimbursed for $11 billion in state-funded enforcement efforts, raising yet another battle over who ultimately pays for border security. But as you can see in the latest clips, the construction of the wall is in full swing once again. The border wall between Mexico and the United States stretches roughly 3,200 kilometers, beginning at the Gulf of Mexico and ending at the Pacific Ocean. It cuts across a vast range of terrains, scorching deserts, mountains, and dense urban areas, each posing unique challenges to construction and enforcement. Designed to curb unauthorized crossings, the wall is more than just a physical barrier. It incorporates high-tech surveillance tools including motion sensors, thermal cameras, and aerial drones, all working together to monitor movement along the border. Each section of the wall is carefully engineered to adapt to its environment. In areas with shifting sand dunes or unstable riverbeds, the design had to accommodate these natural obstacles. The height varies between 5.5 and 9 meters, constructed from reinforced steel and concrete to withstand both the elements and human attempts to breach it. In some places, the wall is so thick that even if two people reached out with their arms fully extended, they wouldn't be able to touch hands through it. But how did this immense structure come to be? The idea of a fortified border between Mexico and the United States has existed for decades, but it gained real momentum in the start of the 21st century. The primary driving force behind the wall has always been national security, an attempt to regulate immigration and combat illegal activities such as drug trafficking and human smuggling. In the 1990s, a surge in unauthorized border crossings led to mounting political pressure to implement stricter control measures. Over time, this concern translated into legislation, funding, and ultimately, the large-scale construction of physical barriers. However, the wall is not a continuous structure. Natural obstacles, including mountain ranges, vast deserts in the Rio Grande, have shaped its layout. In certain regions, the natural terrain itself serves as a deterrent, reducing the need for extensive man-made barriers. This strategic design balances enforcement with environmental considerations, as large portions of the border run through national parks and protected areas. The sheer scale of the construction effort is staggering. One of the most well-known sections begins at El Muro en la Playa in Tijuana, where a 9-meter-high steel barrier extends 60 meters into the ocean. From there, the wall stretches 226 kilometers through Baja California, covering both urban and desert landscapes. In heavily trafficked areas like Tijuana, double-layered barriers and increased surveillance measures are in place to deter crossings. Further east, the barrier follows the Sonoran Desert, covering approximately 362 kilometers of harsh, arid terrain. Here, extreme temperatures and vast, open spaces make migration particularly dangerous, often turning deadly for those attempting the journey. The presence of the Rio Grande also adds a natural obstacle along nearly 1,900 kilometers of the border, reducing the need for a continuous physical barrier in some locations. Instead, monitoring systems and legal entry points have been established to manage immigration. But despite these reinforcements, the human desire to cross persists. As seen in the video, migrants continue to attempt entry, driven by economic hardship, political instability, and the hope of a better future. Many seek higher wages to support their families, while others flee violence or oppressive governments. The U.S. offers access to stable jobs, quality education, and advanced healthcare, opportunities that can be life-changing. Family reunification is another powerful motivation, as many migrants hope to join loved ones already living in the United States. However, the wall remains one of the most polarizing structures in modern history. While supporters argue that it strengthens national security and upholds sovereignty, critics view it as a symbol of division, both literal and ideological. Environmental concerns are also a significant issue, as the barrier disrupts wildlife migration patterns and cuts through ecologically sensitive areas. The social and political implications of the wall continue to spark heated debates, raising fundamental questions about immigration policy, humanitarian responsibility, and national identity. The U.S.-Mexico border wall is no different. As construction continues and debates rage on, one thing remains clear. The wall represents a complex intersection of politics, security, and human aspiration. It is more than just steel and concrete. It embodies the struggles, hopes, and challenges of a divided world. But what do you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below.